Coach.
How we doing?
Good, you?
Good. All right, back at it. First off, want to just congratulate Coach Ulmer and Coach Abel on their big wins with soccer and volleyball this past weekend. Always fun to see other sports do a really good job as well. I know they have home games again this week that we're excited to see. Also want to thank just everybody in the Pac-12 this past week for taking the time to honor Spencer by painting the tick marks. I think that's really a really neat way to commemorate and remember a guy that obviously means so much to us. All that being said, I said most of my thoughts right after the game, but excited to be able to walk away from a tough environment and a tough start with a win. Really proud of our guys and their resiliency and how they finished that game. Certainly a lot of stuff for us to grow on, and looking forward to playing a team that I have a lot of respect for and a coach that I have a lot of respect for in Stanford this week.
You mentioned post game Saturday. You'd heard from a fair amount of people about what it was like to play at Washington State, and that was tough. I suspect you're going to hear from a fair amount of people this week about losses to Stanford that have ruined past Oregon football seasons. Traditionally, in recent years, they've been a pretty tough, unique preparation compared to the rest of the league. Do you see anything like that on film so far as you get into them?
Yeah, they are certainly different. They have their own footprint, and they're a different team to prepare for. And some of the packaging and personnel groups you have to get ready for. The way they just play, the style of play that they have is different. And again, they've had a lot of success, obviously, over the last few years. And we were able to hit on some of that history today with our team, and I think our guys are really familiar with, the success that Stanford's had in the past and have a lot of respect for that team.
With an 8 p.m. kick, how does that change your schedule on Saturday to kind of make sure you guys are up and ready to play that late at night?
Yeah, we do a few different things. We kind of have all these schedules mapped out in advance based on when our kick is, back to when we go to bed the night before, what that timing looks like, having an activation lift that we do the day of a game. So there's a few things that we do a little bit different just with a little later kickoff.
Right here in the front, James.
Are you all appealing DJ's targeting call? And because that's a new thing, Dan, if you are, what is the process for that? It goes through the conference to Steve Shaw, who gets back to the conference.
Yeah, it's been appealed and it's been denied.
Eric, on the left.
Talked a little bit about Stanford already, but it's a pretty veteran defense. I think their top 7 tacklers have like 4 or 5 years of experience each. Does that come across on film? Kind of what do you see from that unit?
Yeah, still getting into it, but yeah, there is a lot of experience. It's a team that plays with great discipline. They don't give up great big explosives. I think that shows. When you look at their penalties, they're one of the lower penalized teams in the nation as well. But yeah, there's some experience that certainly shows up, and you can see it on film.
Front right here in the middle.
Coach, you get a big win against a good Washington State team. Now you're going up against a team just suffered a loss, doesn't have necessarily the best record. What do you tell your guys, or what do you do to kind of remind the guys to maybe not get complacent or rest on the laurels of this big Washington State win?
We spent time this morning talking about, really the variety of ways that we've won this season and the variety of teams that we've played. And I think you just kind of can continue on where do we need to grow? Where do we need to build for us to be a complete team? We've proven we can win in some different settings and some different ways. But this is a team that we have to bring our best for. And it's really, just like I've said every week, it's about Oregon and our improvement. And we have a lot of respect for this team. This team, shortened our season last year, or at least didn't, some of the guys in our room, they still have a bad taste in their mouth, from playing these guys before. So that's not far from their minds, and playing to our best is. So that's really what we focus on.
All the way to the back, Matt.
Just defensively, what do you see out of the Stanford front and just the challenges that they may present for you guys?
Yeah, just what they're a well-coached team. In the past, obviously Stanford's been a 3-4 team. You see more 4 down now than you have maybe in the past. That being said, well-coached, they understand their assignment. They play assignment football, and they can create some negative plays with the way they play.
All right, Zach.
A couple of weeks ago, you talked about wanting to coach better during shout and potentially, telling players when or when they shouldn't celebrate during shout. Have you had that conversation with players, or really set any parameters for what you want to see during that period?
We've talked to our team about it. I think they have an understanding of our expectation.
James, front left.
Talked a little last week about Bo's situational improvements, particularly on 3rd down. He does it again, and in the 4th quarter, which was another situational split that wasn't favorable for him. in the off-season conversations you guys had and reviewing and assessing that, who was involved in that process? Like, I'm getting at who deserves all the credit for this? Is this you and Kenny? Is it working with the guys at QB Country?
Kenny and I didn't play a single snap on Saturday, right? And Bo deserves credit for the way he performed. Our players deserve credit for the way that they perform in games. You know, he performed well. Does he have to take coaching? Does he have to grow and improve? Absolutely, but he's done that, and he did what he needed to do in the game on Saturday. You know, I promise you, there's plays he wants back too, right? But I didn't play a single snap, and neither did Coach Dillingham. Does that mean he was well prepared? Absolutely, he was. But he put in the work to be well prepared.
Back left, Kirk.
And you pick up your first conference road win, a game where your backs were against the wall and you had to make plays late. Do you feel like you learned more about your team in a game like that than maybe you did in the first 3 games of the season?
I don't know. I think each game that we've walked away from, I feel like I've learned something unique in each one. You know, obviously this is that game to me was our DNA trait game. You know, we had to go out there and play a team in a rough situation where we had to really show some resiliency, and there was moments of sacrifice and growth and toughness, and all those things really showed up. The things that we talk about, connection, all those things really showed up in that game for us. I think you saw it firsthand as it played out, and I'm sure there was a lot of people that didn't really believe there at the end of the game, but I don't think there was ever an ounce of doubt on our sideline, which I certainly appreciated because we needed all hands on deck. But we learned a lot from it. I think we've learned a lot from each game we've played in this year.
Middle left, Eric.
I think after George, you talked about communication on the field, and it looks like you guys got caught one time looking to the sideline. Can you walk us through what happened there? Maybe ways this week to work on that.
Yeah, it's a trick play, you know, where they're basically checking to see if we're checking. You know, at times if offense changes their call and you don't change your call defensively, they can catch what you're in. They tried to simulate like they were changing their call offensively, and then they didn't snap the ball. And we can coach that better and do a better job of that on our sideline, and we'll coach it better. Certainly, a way you don't want to give a big play, and something for us to learn from as a team.
James.
The throw from Bo to Bucky on 4th and 2 gets kind of lost in so many of the things that happen after it, but without it, none of those things probably occur. In rewatching it, your assessment of that play on both ends, it's a heck of a throw, and obviously Bucky's catch as well when there's not a lot of room for him to maneuver and make that catch.
Yeah, that's good players making good plays there. You're 100% right. When it does get a little bit overshadowed, I mean, that game's a completely different game if that 4th down doesn't get converted, right? And that's an extended play. It didn't happen clean like you anticipated happening when you call the play. But 2 guys did a great job of making a play there, and as well as the protection up front and other guys within the sequence of the play doing their job really made all those things work.
Coach, you probably had a lot of energy in the locker room and then coming back here and in practice today. How do you kind of control that energy so it's more productive as opposed to, say, like wasteful energy, like guys just kind of just messing around in practice, or just like kind of burning through the energy that they could use for the game?
We don't mess around much. We just kind of work. And energy is a good thing, right? You need energy to be successful. So we just try to focus on the things that matter and put our energy towards that.
Back left, Trevor.
Red zone efficiency was something that hampered you guys really in the first half, especially. What conversations are you having right now as you head into this week of practice? Are you already practicing? But what kind of conversations are you having about cleaning that up?
We worked red area today, right? So it doesn't take long. I mean, I think one of the things that this team's shown is if there's something that we're not doing well, we're going to work on it and work on ways to improve it. And we focused on it. We talked about it as a staff yesterday in ways that we can be better there, and we'll continue to do the same. But we focused on it in practice today, and now it's got to show up on the field. We got to do that in practice first before we expect to have the results we want on game day.
Back right, Matt.
Wilson leads the conference in yards per play on catches, and Humphreys is right there. I think they've got a running back too that averages a big chunk as well. Just that matchup, your secondary against these explosive receivers. Just your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's a challenge that we're excited for. I mean, these guys are big. They go attack the ball down the field. They do a good job of finding a one-on-one and then taking advantage of it. So we have to go win one-on-ones. You know, we have to win one-on-ones in the perimeter. We'll have to do more with less at times in the run game. They're certainly have had some explosive runs when they do a good job of reading out their plays and seeing what's there, whether it be, run option or pass down the field. So it's a good challenge for us.
Middle left, Eric.
Adam Berry had the first 7 punts of the year. Ross had one I think, in a pretty big spot and did pretty well there. Is that obviously it's probably ongoing, but how do you kind of see that competition? What went into that decision to put him out there?
Yeah, we want to give Rosh a shot to see what he was able to do in a game. He's performed some in practice, and I think that'll continue to find ways to make sure we give our best opportunity to be successful, moving forward. So if it's Ross, then we'll be Ross. If it's Adam, it'll be Adam. We'll see what it looks like as we continue to move.
James.
Even going back to spring, you guys were really high on certainly Troy and Dante at receiver. At what point did it come through to you, Dan, that Troy, obviously there's really highly touted recruits, I'm sure you were aware of them before even coming here, but that Troy could do what he's doing right now for you guys, where he's well on his way to, obviously, long season ago, but on his way to really a breakout season, certainly a 1,000-yard kind of season potentially?
Well, for me, it's watching him in spring ball, right? Like I think I always say that in here. What you do on the practice field, it shows up on the game, in games. And I've seen Troy do that. The thing that I'm more proud of with Troy is what he's done to help, grow his body, right? His body composition's changed. He's gotten bigger. He's got to continue to get bigger, but I think that's helped him be stronger and have stronger, better play strength. But you see some of those plays show up. It's, there's a drill that we call stumble bum here that we do. That showed up on that very last play where he's falling to the ground and he puts his hand down and there's an opportunity for ball security to be poor, and you'll watch him cross in the end zone with the ball covered up in the other hand, and that's something that we take a lot of pride in coaching, and Troy did a good job of executing on the field. But what I would say is Troy's doing what he does in practice and it's showing up on game day.
Bill, Eric.
Now, you said you don't pay attention to PFF, but Marcus Harper is supposedly the best interior offensive lineman in pass protection this year. Does that kind of align with what you've seen just in general? How's Marcus performed?
Marcus has had some really great moments. I think our offensive line in general has performed, well. And I would say that this past week's challenge was the biggest challenge from moving parts, the way they did a variety of things up front. And I thought our O-line handled that really well. Like I'll probably say every time anybody asks me a question, I think Marcus has other stuff he can get better at too.
Back right, Matt.
Sticking at receiver, obviously Franklin's been the big play guy for you, but can you maybe just speak the play that Chase has given you? I think he's having a career year, and he's made some big catches in some critical moments on third down or just late in drives like at Washington State.
Yeah, Chase has just proven to be trustworthy, right? And we knew that coming in that he was trustworthy, but he's all about the team. And when the ball comes his way, he's done a good job of making the play, right? But he's very reliable, and I think that shows up consistently from him and his play.
All right, Jared.
Other than Josh getting in a couple of those jumbo packages, I think you guys' 5 starting offensive linemen played every snap. Was that by design, or was that?
I don't think that's the case. Yeah, you might go back and check. There's some other guys that played.
Going back to PFF snap counts, it said they played all 79 or whatever.
Just go watch the game tape. Then I guess PFF snaps wrong. I don't know who does that. Some guy sitting in his basement is tallying it up wrong. I know JPJ played it as well. We had several. Adjustments there. So we have a good group of guys that we can play multiple people, and that's a good thing. That's a positive for us. But certainly there was a number of guys that got this significant amount of snaps, but that's not the correct deal there.
James.
Couple updates in terms of personnel, Dan. Since Byron's missed a couple of weeks, just how close is he to returning? We haven't seen a lot of Caleb Chapman just yet. We saw him late, I think, on either BYU or Eastern. And with Stephen Jones, is that kind of a post-bye week thing? Is that a longer term for him? But those are the
Yeah, not sharing anything on Stephen. Continue to evaluate, where we're at on Byron again when he's able to do everything in practice and we feel comfortable about his health. Then he'll definitely be a guy that I think can help us and contribute for us. Chap, I think, is close to being able to, be able to make some significant help us, out there on the field. He's certainly healthier now than he has been. So his role can grow if he's able to get it done in practice for us.
Eric on the left.
In some of those early red zone spots, we saw tight ends targeted on screens. I'm just curious on why those matchups seem favorable for you guys.
Just ultimately, I think you're talking about some of our read zone blocking plays. We thought our numbers count was going to look a certain way, and I think you'll see on the 2-point conversion it was a similar play call, but that turned into a block, right? Where T. Ferg actually turned and blocked, and Bo was able to run it in. So it's just it's a call that has multiple options, and based on numbers count, it can go outside to the tight end on a screen, or it can be a quarterback pull where he can actually run the ball. And just felt like that'd be advantageous for us based off the bigger personnel group that we were using there, getting the ball out in space and not always running the ball when we're in that big personnel grouping.
Back right, Matt.
Stanford traditionally likes to run the ball, a lot of power run game type stuff. This year, you've rotated your defensive line pretty consistently throughout the game. How much of an advantage has that been for you guys, and just to have the talent and the depth to be able to consistently rotate guys in and out like that?
Yeah, it's definitely a positive. We have to continue to develop our roster, and I think the best way to develop your roster is through experience, right? And we want to be a team that can play multiple players. So that's something we have to continue to do. Obviously, stopping the run's a premium when you play Stanford. They want to bloody your nose a little bit, and they do a good job of that. So it'll be important in this game.
James.
You obviously have the all 22 and far more data than I, Dan, but it seems like when Gonzo's lined up to the boundary that the corners to the field are being picked on a good bit. I don't know the exact numbers there, but anecdotally it seems that way. You guys have played a lot of left-right as opposed to field boundary. Just what goes into the decision, I'm not saying right or wrong, just what goes into the decision-making process of sticking with left-right versus potentially playing Gonzo more to the field when teams have been successful to the field a little bit?
Yeah, it's probably not as there's probably more thought put into than you realize on that at times, but we'll be able to travel our corners based on certain personnel. We play certainly left right within a series a lot more often. Sometimes you play a team where they play left and right receivers, so that makes sense as well, right? But with tempo teams, if you're traveling your corners 53 yards every single play, right, they spend a lot of energy. We're talking about energy and where you use your energy. That's one place that I'm not always a big fan of using that energy unless it's for a matchup purpose. More throws in general in college football go into the boundary than go to the field. That's just consistent because it's a shorter throw. But we always evaluate that. We have certain places we'll put guys. Sometimes it's left, right. Sometimes it's matchup based. It's certainly something we evaluate.
Last one, James.
Caillou Kelly's also one of the better cover corners in this league, other than Gonzo, quite frankly. What is the challenge for your receiving core against him this weekend? Just what makes him a particularly tough matchup for receivers in general?
Yeah, just got to do our 111th. This game's going to be about winning one-on-ones across the board. They have 11 guys, we have 11, and obviously he's a really good player. He's a talented player, but our guys just have to go out there and operate within the system, and when they get their opportunity, take advantage of it.
Thank you, Coach. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, guys.
Tim, you're going to mute those. Thank you.